Welcome to The Explainer. So, we're going to talk about something fascinating today. How your vote for a judge might not actually have the power you think it does. We're going to look at how the courts that handle the really big decisions can be quietly, walled off from the ballot box. And that changes the entire architecture of power. Okay, let's start with a basic question, one we all think we know the answer to. When you vote for a judge, what are you actually voting for? I mean, you're voting for fairness, right? For someone to interpret the law in your town, for a direct line of accountability between you, the people, and the judiciary. Seems simple enough, but well, it's getting a lot more complicated than that. So take a place like Georgia. The whole promise there is direct democratic accountability. You head to the polls, you check out the candidates, and you get to pick the people who are going to preside over, criminal cases, family disputes, all the legal stuff that really impacts your day-to-day life. And to be clear, that system, it's still very much there. But what if I told you that's only half the story? Seriously, let's really dive into this, because while everyone's been focused on those local elections, a whole parallel judicial system has been quietly built, and this one, it operates on a completely different set of rules. So here's the breakdown. It's pretty clear when you see it side by side. Over on one side, you've got the courts the local ones, with judges elected by you. But then, on the other side, that's where you see this newer system of appointed courts. We're talking about things like the statewide business court and the tax court, and they're specifically designed to handle some of the most high-stakes, consequential legal battles in the entire state. And this really gets to the heart of the issue. Some experts call it a two-tiered system, and that's exactly what it is. Think about it. There's one track for regular folks and their local issues, and those cases are decided by judges you get to vote for. But then there's this other, separate track for all the big money, corporate, and tax fights, and those are decided by judges appointed by the governor. So what do we even mean by high stakes? Well, get this. For a case to even land in this new statewide business court, the amount of money involved usually has to be over $500,000. That's the entry fee. We're talking about a completely separate legal venue, tailor-made for big money and big business. And don't think this stuff doesn't affect you. These cases can involve things that hit your wallet directly, like utility rate hikes, or impact the environment you live in. So the big question is, how did this happen right under everyone's noses? It wasn't some big dramatic event. Nope. It was done piece by piece through a series of really subtle but incredibly powerful changes to the state's most important document, its constitution. Just take a look at this timeline. It lays out this steady march of constitutional amendments, all happening in less than a decade. You see it. 2016, they change who watches the judges. 2018, the statewide business court pops up. Then in 2024, tax disputes get their own special appointed court. And here's the kicker. Each one of these steps was approved by voters, slowly chipping away at the old system and shifting power away from the ballot box and straight to the governor's office. But what's really fascinating and kind of wild is how these huge changes were sold to the public. I mean, the ballot questions didn't say, hey, should we create a whole separate court system for corporations that's run by appointed judges? Of course not. Instead, they use these nice-sounding words like efficiency, predictability, lower costs. It's a classic strategy, right? You use simple, positive language on the ballot that completely masks the complex reality of the power shift that's happening just behind the curtain. And this whole re-engineering project, it isn't just about where cases are heard. It goes deeper. It's also about a much more fundamental question. Who judges the judges? Who holds them accountable when they step out of line? Okay, so before 2016, the group in charge of disciplining judges was called the JQC, the Judicial Qualifications Commission, and it was a genuinely independent body. Its members were mostly picked by other lawyers from the state bar and by the Supreme Court, so basically by legal professionals and other judges. And it actually worked. It had a real track record of removing unethical judges from the bench. But then came that 2016 constitutional amendment, and it just blew that whole model up. The old JQC was completely abolished, and they created a brand new one. And in this new version, guess who got the power to appoint the majority of the members? You got it, the state's top political leaders, the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. So here's the really crucial point. The people who now hold this immense power over every single judge in the state are directly tied to political leadership. Analysts call this a chilling effect, and you can see why. Imagine you're a judge, you have to rule on a controversial law that was just passed by the legislature. Do you maybe think twice, knowing that the very group that could end your career is controlled by the leaders of that same legislature?
it completely changes the game. It really messes with the whole idea of separation of powers. Okay, so this all brings us to the long-term impact. You're probably sitting there thinking, why go to all this trouble to completely restructure the courts? Why not just, try to win the elections? And the answer is pretty simple and pretty smart if you think about it. It's about creating a system that can outlast any single politician or any political party.
There's actually a term for this strategy: constitutional petrification. It's a great name for it, because when you write these changes into the state constitution, you're not just passing a law, you are literally carving it into stone. To undo it isn't easy. You'd need a 2/3 supermajority in the legislature and another statewide vote. The whole thing is designed to be, well, basically permanent. And this really gets to the heart of the whole thing. It's all about this idea: by controlling the venue, by deciding where a case gets heard, you can essentially control the outcome. By creating these special appointed courts, the system builds a kind of firewall. It shields all those legal decisions that matter most to big corporations and state finances. We're talking about consumer rights, environmental rules, tax policy. It shields all that from the messy, unpredictable pressures of a democratic election.
So what's the end game here? It's this. Even if voters decide they want a change, even if they elect a new governor from a different party or flip control of the entire legislature, this new court structure, it stays right where it is. The new leaders would walk in and find their hands tied because the very architecture of judicial power, especially when it comes to money, is locked into the Constitution, designed by the people who were in power before them. And all of that leaves us with one last big question. If the courts that handle the most important financial and corporate fights are intentionally put beyond the reach of your vote, then what does accountability even mean anymore? It really makes you question the very definition of a vote in a system that's been so carefully and so quietly rebuilt from the inside out.